what is the status of this?
So, however, Your Honor, Solidad Digilla, Your Honor, has already executed an affidavit that they are not contesting, and in fact is in favor of the property, or in favor of the development of the property, Your Honor. So their standing somehow is highly questionable, Your Honor.
So Pinky Digilla, who is one of the alleged petitioners,
Your Honor, one of the petitioners.
She is not a registered owner of the property because the registered owner of the property is Soledad P. Digilla, and Soledad P. Digilla had already executed her affidavit to support the project. So,
and who was the subject of the expropriation case, Your Honor?
Pinky Digilla has no legal standing in the case at bar, and the alleged structure or house that Pinky Digilla is residing, is it still there or it has been dismantled already?
It is no writ of possession has yet been issued by the court, so it is still intact, Your Honor. It's still standing, Your Honor.
So therefore, they don't have it right to complain because this they have not yet been affected to the ongoing project construction. Am I right?
Yes, Your Honor. In a way, premature, Your Honor. And then another one, Your Honor, is that the lady aforementioned already, Erinia Tadley, Your Honor, who is not a resident of Purok 6, that is actually a resident of Ozamis City. Roqueta City, rather, Your Honor, rather than Ozamis.
Okay, so
okay, Your Honor. And the last, Your Honor, are the family of the Neris, Your Honor. Catherine, Camilo, Melina, Neri, Your Honor. Insofar as they are concerned, Your Honor, a writ of possession has been issued. Break open order was issued. It was implemented by the sheriff despite some interventions. But the house is still intact as of this moment, Your Honor.
Despite the service of the writ of possession, where they were evicted by virtue of the court order, their house has not yet been demolished.
Yes, Your Honor.
And what is the reason? Because that was asked earlier by the author on he was wondering why the structure has not yet been demolished despite the writ of possession issued by the court.
Over and above whatever claim they have, Your Honor, they are banking allegedly on the support of outside sources, Your Honor. I mean, they have connections with the previous administration, I would say, Your Honor. The highly questionable personalities who were governing Ozamis City then, Your Honor.
Mr. Administrator, you mean that because of their connections, you have not yet demolished, or you are exhausting further legal remedies in asking the court for the specific order in demolishing the property, hereby respecting the rights over it?
Yes, Your Honor, but we only abide with what is mandated by the court, Your Honor.
Okay, so therefore the Neris were evicted by virtue of the writ of possession, but their house is still there.
No,
so
because of the order to vacate issued by the court, Your Honor, after the break open order.
Okay. So, who among the remaining oppositors own houses that have already been dismantled? Because as I listened from your presentation, none among the oppositors, even Neri, has a house in the area, because you said that the Carpios, the Nauto, just own the land and living in the areas outside Ozamis City, which
yes,
could not be affected on the alleged illegal demolition. And in the case of the other persons, the Gudu, the Giya, they are still living, residing in their house, unaffected by the ongoing construction. So, from among the oppositors, who are those only who own houses in the area which have been dismantled, and how was the dismantle or demolition done, Mr. Administrator?
No, based on record, Your Honor, based on record, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, actually, none among them already, the present petitioners, I mean, are directly affected with the directly has a right to be protected by their certiorari petition, because as I mentioned, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, the Carpios do not have, those representing supposedly the Carpios have no structures in the property. The same thing is true with Danauto. As to Torres, his co-owner actually acquiesced to the property and supported and caused the voluntary demolition of their structure. And
so you want to
the residential house of the Neri is still standing, Your Honor.
So you want to impress, Mr. Chair, Mr. Administrator, you want to impress that there are no valid complainants which serve as the basis of the author in filing this resolution that of alleged illegal demolition, because there were no complainants of houses which are actually being demolished, because the complainants which were cited, those that filed before the Supreme Court, were probably the same people, which can be validated later on once the author would identify these persons, who has really no structures that were, or houses that were demolished as presented in the resolutions for alleged demolition. So, Mr. Chair, it was mentioned that in the writ opposition, in the case filed before the RTC, the city has deposited the value of the land, as contained in the order of the court. The issue of replacement cost is not on record with the court. That is because those that were those owners, renters, or informal settlers who are beneficiaries of this project, when they voluntarily dismantled their property, they were properly compensated already by the government, by the city government, with the corresponding value of their structures or their houses on an out-of-court negotiation. What can you say about this, Mr. Administrator?
That would be correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
When these individuals, majority of the settlers who really demanded for the housing, Your Honor, dismantled their structures, they also received compensation, and in fact are staying, Your Honor, in a place provided for also by the LGU.
Those alleged complainants, they have not received compensation in so far as the structure, because the value of the land were deposited in court as a requirement for the issuance of the writ opposition.
Yes,
they have not been compensated. There was no compensation on the structures because there were no structures to be compensated. Am I right? Except that of the Nere, which still it's still there, and the
still standing.
Court proceedings is still there.
Yes.
So, am I right, Mr. Administrator?
Yes, Mr. Chair, yes, Your Honor.
So in that case, there are no valid basis for the accusations of illegal demolitions, as there are no complainant who are really real complainant who are affected that their houses were demolished, because those mentions, they don't have houses, that they resided in another areas, and that those who are residing there and who own houses, they have not yet been disturbed yet, because their area is not yet part of the phase 1, phase 2 of the projects, and the cases are still ongoing negotiation. So no replacement cost because they are still there. Is that what you mean, Mr. Administrator?
Yes, that would be correct, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
And
I know
Mr. Chair, I think I still have my time, Mr. Chair. May I be allowed to proceed with my clarificatory questions to the real party in interest?
Mr. Chair, I thought that Diaz Waminal will be interpolating. He is making an explanation and he is fielding leading questions to the city administrator so that he can be answered the way he wanted to. That is not supposed to be the case, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I think it is.
This Marcoleta, I already wish that you give this Ominal the latitude, because he says that he's only interested here because Osami City is part of the district, and the funds, part of the funds that constructed this project is in his name. That is why he wants to push his side of his story. So let's give him a little latitude, because he gave good faith to you, and he gave you almost 2 hours of uninterrupted time. So my request is that we repay him in an equal way, by not by giving him an interrupted interpellation. I know that you are feeling that he's leading, but that is his style. Let us give it to him.
Mr. Chair, I noted the direction of the questioning. Wala naman sa akin yun, sana kung pure
Yung direction ng questioning is obvious. He's stating that almost all of the complainants are not registered residents of Purok 6, Barangay Laman. That's his line of questioning.
But that is not the way for, this is not for them to decide, Mr. Chair. Anyway, the petition was already with the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court can decide one way or the other. It is not for the committee to lay a decision on whether or not these residents are owners of the lot or owners of their own houses. That is not for us to decide, Mr. Chair. We are still looking into the project. And
yes, it's like
the consequence of that. I hope the questioning should be, in a way, Mr. Chair, to elicit what has been the parameters of this of the resolution. Not putting questions on or judging the complaining witnesses. They're only residents there, Mr. Chair, complaining about certain demolitions of their houses, whether or not they own it. The land or the residence, that is beside the point at this point in time, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. Thank you, DS Marcoleta. Please proceed, Ominal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The reason for such presentation, Mr. Chair, that we use the petitioners in the Supreme Court, because the author failed to identify the other alleged complainants in this case. So that he just mentioned even in the earlier hearing, the first hearing, that he will furnish the committee. So in the absence of that, we use these persons because there might be the similar persons who are coming to the author. And as I have viewed in the personalities during the Zoom earlier when they were presented, the personalities that I had mentioned are more or less the same persons who are the petitioners in the Supreme Court. Now, with the kind permission of the Honorable Chair, Mr. Administrator, are there efforts, or you can explain the efforts that the local government made to settle with the opposing surface right holders in this particular case?
May I, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, I was not able to get the question.
Yes, Mr. Chair, with the kind permission, I will repeat the questions. Are there efforts exerted by the local government to settle with the opposing or the complainants, no? The petitioners in the Supreme Court, or the alleged complainants in this case before the author?
Oh, well, if that is prior, even prior to the expropriation case, Your Honor, in compliance with the mandate of the law, the LGU, based on records, Your Honor, actually gathered all of the residents beforehand, and then they were made, the explanation was made about the necessity of the project site, and then of course there were those, it was then where the consensus was arrived, Your Honor, that majority of the settlers were acquiesced to the construction, the project, Your Honor. And it was only these oppositors who insisted or refused this project, Your Honor. And I believe, yes.
Go ahead.
And I believe Your Honor was instrumental, Your Honor, in negotiating and providing financial assistance to these affected residents, who eventually will be the beneficiaries, Your Honor, of the housing project, Your Honor.
Okay. So what happened after the negotiations were made with the affected residents, to those who supported and who those affected residents? Now, after the negotiations, what transpired?
For those who were amenable to the project, Your Honor, negotiations were made. They voluntarily vacated their property, dismantling their areas, and of course there were those who refused, Your Honor, and that is why there are expropriation cases filed.
So you want to impress before this committee that those buildings, the building 1 is phase 1 and phase 2, the occupants of those in those areas, they were when they voluntarily vacated and dismantled their houses, their structures, they were properly compensated by the local government.
Yeah, that would be correct, Your Honor. We did gave them the compensation as necessary, Your Honor.
And did you also provide relocation with these affected residents?
Yes, Your Honor. For those that were relocations, Your Honor, as stated, Your Honor, majority of the affected residents sought the assistance in dismantling their sites, and the DPWH, Your Honor, was instrumental by allowing the project contractor, Your Honor, to provide the necessary manpower and equipment to help the residents who dismantle their sites to make use or to avail of whatever materials they can salvage from what has been from their previous structures, Your Honor.
Okay. One of the issue of this resolution, one of the issues is the violations of the alleged of the DILG Circular 2020-068, which prohibits eviction and demolition activities during the state of national emergency. Did the city violate this circular?
No, Your Honor. The city, Mr. Chair, the city was not in violation of the DILG circular, Your Honor, because the circular itself was very categorical that it was administrative eviction and demolition, Your Honor. In this particular case, Your Honor, the residents who dismantled even after already writs of possessions were issued, Your Honor, were the ones who voluntarily dismantled their areas, Your Honor, and this was pursuant to the order of the courts for the writ of possession, Your Honor.
And with this DILG circular and with this complainants, alleged complainants in this case before the author, no, that brought this issue here in Congress, was there any case filed against the local government, no, by the agency in charge, like the DILG, or by the complainants for alleged violation of this DILG circular? And if there is such case, you know what is the outcome of that case?
To be particular, Your Honor, the very same petitioners before the Supreme Court, Your Honor, I mean a number, particularly the nearest, Your Honor, they have already brought the matter, Your Honor, before the DILG, and the local government, the chief executive, was made to show cause why he should not be cited for violating supposedly the circular. However, the DILG, Your Honor, that it was not in violation of the circular, Your Honor.
Okay, so the DILG has ruled on the administrative case that the local government did not violate anything insofar as this DILG Memorandum Circular number 2020-068. And
Yes,
are you referring to that video presentation which was of the Undersecretary of the DILG, which was presented to the first hearing? The pronouncement that the DILG had already rolled on the matter in favor of the local government?
That would be correct, Mr. Chair, Your Honor.
I want you also, Mr. Administrator, to clarify, as this was clearly raised by the author, that under the ODHA, private lands rank last in terms of priority when land is needed for housing projects. Why did the city not follow this order of priority under the ODHA?
If Your Honor, please, insofar as we were concerned, Your Honor, the Urban Housing and Development Act has no application to the instant case because this is an on-site development, Your Honor, and the persons supposedly affected are directly the beneficiaries. And secondly, Your Honor, what stands out as exception is that this is a government. This is this is funded, Your Honor, strictly by the
funded by the General Appropriations Act, because that was
it is covered by the GAA, Your Honor, which stands as an exception.
Okay. Under the ODHA, this was also clearly emphasized by the author in his interpolation. Small property owners, or those whose only property consists of residential land and not exceeding 800 square meters, are exempt from expropriation. Why did the city again not follow these provisions of the ODHA?
Your Honor, please, Mr. Chair, the restriction that has been made mention beforehand has no application also because the restriction applies to those who have no other land holdings. The petitioners and the oppositors in this case have other sizable land holdings, Your Honor, other than the places where their structures are or their residences are established.
The nearest,
The nearest, the now to your honor, not only have land holdings in the city but in other municipalities of the province. And one of the particular families that has been raised here, Your Honor, is that of the Carpios. I mean, there are where I said there are some stringers. The area involved for the Carpios, Your Honor, is 6,000 square meters. So they have sizable land holdings. These people claiming to be affected as small landowners are not actually small landowners, Your Honor. Mr. Chair.
okay. After the completion of the project, no, who will benefit from this housing project, Mr. Administrator?
Based on the program, Your Honor, the very same individuals, Your Honor, the very same settlers, Your Honor, who have temporarily relocated, who are currently opposing, Your Honor, are the very same people who will be given the units, Your Honor. They are directly the beneficiaries, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Administrator.
Good afternoon po. Ako po yung apo ni Conchita Danauto. Isang residente din po sa Laman.
Sabihin po ninyo kung kayo ay walang, yung pong pamilya ninyo ay walang karapatang magsampa ng asunto dahil hindi kayo ang may-ari ng lupa, maring hindi kayo may-ari ng bahay, at mga sinasabi pa nila hindi naman kayo residente ng Laman. Pwede bang patunayan ninyo na kung totoo ang sinasabi nila, sabihin nyo totoo ang sinasabi nila. Kung nagsisinungaling sila, sabihin nyo sa amin kung nagsisinungaling sila. Kasi kailangan po nating matukoy ang totoo dahil nakikinig po ang mga miyembro ng committee ito.
Hindi po totoo yung sinasabi nila na wala kaming bahay. Kasi nandun po ako exact nung date na dinimolish yung bahay namin. At isa po ako sa nag-video. At may proof po ako na giniba yung bahay namin nung April 24, alas 10 ng umaga, 2020 po. At yun po ay COVID na.
Yung iba pa po, yung pamilyang Torres.
Good afternoon po.
Ano ba yung sinasabi ng inyong city administrator na wala kayong karapatang magsampa ng asunto o maghabol sapagkat either hindi kayo ang may-ari ng lupa at kayo naman ay walang bahay dyan o kaya hindi naman kayo residente ng Laman at kayo naman po yung iba binayaran na raw at kayo naman ay binigyan din ng relokasyon. Totoo ba lahat ang sinasabi ng city administrator?
Hindi po totoo yan. Isa po ako sa nakatanggap ng writ opposition, then in-forced eviction po nila kami. No, May 27 po, pinaalis kami sa bahay namin. Sorry po. May 27 po, pinaalis kami sa bahay namin.
Excuse me po, bago po kayo patuloy, kailangan po namin malaman yung pangalan nyo kasi lahat po nagte-testify sa committee nyo to. Kailangan po may pangalan. Ano po pangalan nyo, ma'am?
Sorry po, sir. Ako po si Lesal Torres.
Okay, thank you po. Opo, thank you po. You may continue po.
Isa po ako sa nakatanggap ng writ opposition. May 27 po, pinalis kami sa bahay namin. Sabi nila, hindi na nila gibain yung bahay namin. Umabot po kami ng May 28. Kasi hindi namin natapos yung pagligpit ng bahay namin. Hindi natapos yung pagligpit ng mga gamit namin ng bandang 28 ng May. Sinurrender yung bahay namin kay City Administrator Sam Puentes po. Siya yung nagpirma. Then May 28 ng bandang hapon po, giniba na yung bahay namin. Hindi kami binayaran, sir.
Binayaran ba kayo?
Yes, sir. Hindi,
Binigyan
sir.
po
Wala
lang
po,
kayo
sir.
ng matitirhan pagkatapos na kayo ay palayasin sa inyong mga tahanan.
Sir, inopera nila kami ng relocation pero hindi ko yung tinanggap kasi doon sa bongbong po.
Sa mga tweet, wala po kayong tinitirhan ngayon. Nakikitira po kayo siguro sa mga iba't ibang may-ari ng bahay dahil giniba ang bahay ninyo. Tama po ba yun?
Sir, hindi po ang totoo, sir.
Yung pamilya ng Torres, pwede po bang magsalita din kayo? Totoo po ba? Ano pong pangalan ninyo?
Ako pala ang kapatid ni Lisel Torres. That time, buntis po, 5 months, buntis po ako noon. Kaya habang nagliligpit yung mga ano ko, yung pamangkin ko.
Hello po ma'am, ano pong full name nyo? Kapatid kayo ni Miss Torres. Ano pong full name nyo?
Wendy Torres po. Yun.
Wendy?
Tendi.
Tendi. Okay, thank you po. Tendi, okay.
Sinasabi ng inyong city administrator, Mrs. Torres, maaaring kayo'y walang karapatang magasunto o maghabol kasi hindi naman daw kayo ang may-ari ng lupa, kung minsan hindi naman kayo may-ari ng bahay, o kaya naman nabayaran na kayo, o kaya naman nabigyan na raw kayo ng malilipatan. Totoo ba lahat itong mga sinabi ng inyong city administrator?
Hindi po totoo yan, sir.
Ano po ang totoo?
Hindi po kami nabayaran hanggang ngayon.
Hindi po kayo ang may-ari ng bahay.
Kami po, nakapangalan yan ang title yan, nakapangalan ko.
Meron pa po bang gustong magsalita?
Sir.
Yung pamilya ng Neri, pwedeng magsalita?
Hello, good afternoon po.
Ano pong pangalan ninyo?
Constancia Clara po. Constancia Carpio and Clara. I am the granddaughter of spouses Romeo Carpio and Paz Roa Carpio.
Sinasabi po ng inyong city administrator na wala po kayong personalidad na maghabol, wala kayong legal personality kasi maaring hindi kayo ang may-ari ng lupa, maaring hindi rin kayo may-ari ng bahay, at yung iba naman po ay nabayaran na raw kayo at nabigyan na kayo ng ibang mapaglilipatan. Lahat po ba ng mga ikinuwento ng city administrator sa pamamagitan ng pagtatanong ni Dios Ominal ay totoo ba? Totoo ba yan?
No.
Ano po
I
yung
am
totoo?
one of the here is my father is the son of Romeo Carpio, and they just what you call this pay deposit 500 pesos per square meter in the court. As they say, it's 1,200. No, it's not for us. It's only 500.
Are you saying that the total amount deposited
Yes.
is not
It's just-
1,200 per square meter, but actually it was only 500 pesos per square meter?
For 282, it's just only 141,000.
Okay. So what can you say to the other allegations of the city administrator that some of you are not even residents of Lam'an, but residents of other municipalities or residents of other...
So we are the resident of Laman. We live in Clarin, but we have property house in Laman, and we demolish it. And
Excuse me po. Before we proceed, did you already manifest kung sino po kayo?
Constancia Carpio and Clara po.
Constancia
Carpio and Clara. Carpio.
Carpio Angara.
And Clara.
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 Okay, thank you po. Thank you.
The city administrator also manifested that some of you voluntarily demolish your houses with the help of the contractor. Is that correct?
No, because it's ECQ, and it's very hard for us to go to Osami City because the board border municipality is very strict for travel pass, so they just demolish.
So it is not true that you people voluntarily demolish your houses. That is not true.
Oh, Your Honor.
Okay, any more who wanted to say his or her piece?
I have my uncle. As my uncle is the immediate heir of Romeo Carpio.
Okay, is he here?
Yes.
Hello.
Good afternoon po.
Yes,
Please identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon po, Congressman. I'm Virgilio Carpio. I'm the son of the late Romeo Carpio Rampaso.
Your city administrator earlier made mention that some of you, if not all, have no personality to sue the LGU because you have no titles, you have no ownership to any titles. The houses are not owned by you, or if it is owned by you, some of the residents are not even legitimate residents of Lam'an, but residents of other places. And some of you were already offered or paid compensation. Are these allegations true and correct?
They're sending an emissary.
What is that, sir?
They are sending an emissary, but they turned it out.
So I'm asking you, are those allegations correct?
No.
Are the allegations of the city administrator true or false?
False.
False. So can you confirm that the allegations of the city administrator are not true?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any more who wants to say their piece? What about a representative from the Neri family?
Good afternoon po, Congressman Marcoleta po. Ako po,
Identify yourself please for the record.
Ako po si Melina Neri Soriano po, panganay po ng pamilyang magkakapatid Neri po.
Sinasabi po ng inyong city administrator na kayo po ay walang karapatang maghabla, magasunto dahil wala kayong legal personality dahil una, maaring hindi kayo ang may-ari ng lupa, nakikitira lang daw kayo dyan, hindi rin kayo ang may-ari ng bahay, at yung iba sa inyo hindi naman talaga legitimate na residente ng Lam'an, at yung iba nga dyan, sabi nila, ay maaaring pinoproteksyonan ng malalaking tao. Hindi ko alam kung sino yung sinasabi nila. Totoo ba lahat ng sinasabi ng city administrator ninyo, si Attorney Fuentes?
Si Congressman OAMINAL po, magkapitbahay po kami mulat. Bata pa po ako. Kaalam na niya na taga Purok Size Lam'an po kami, mulat sa poll. At mayroon po kaming karapatan na maghabla or paglaban ang aming karapatan dahil kami po ang may-ari ng lupa. Binili po yun ng mga magulang ko, yung lupa. Maliit pa po ako, kaya may karapatan po kami na i-fight po yung property namin.
Sinasabi po nila na yung maraming bahay ay kusang loob at voluntaryong dinimolis ng mga may-ari ng bahay. Sino po sa inyo ang magsasabi kung meron man na nagboluntaryo at kusang loob na winasak ang sarili nilang tahanan sa gitna ng pandemya? Meron po ba dyan?
Wala po.
Wala po.
Wala po dahil wala po.
Do you categorically deny the allegations of your city administrator that most of you, if not all, are not owners of the lands, they are not owners of the houses, and some of you are not legitimate residents of Lam'an, and that you some of you, if not all, voluntarily demolish your houses at the height of the pandemic? Are these allegations true or false?
False po. Kami pong lahat.
Will you maintain your statement that all these allegations are false kahit na umabot pa kayo sa Congress dahil meron kayong i-file na complaint sa Ethics Committee?
Opo.
Salamat po. Meron pa po bang gustong magsalita?
Ako po, si Erinya Tadli po, yung lupa na sinabi nila na yung may-ari si Regina Garcines, nabili namin po yun ng kapatid ko, si Julie Tadli. At nakatir kami.
Yung may papakita na katibayan o dokumento na kayo po ang nakabili dun sa lupa ng kapatid ninyo?
Opo, dahil sa likod ng titulo po, naka-annotate po doon ang pangalan ni Julie Tadli.
Sinasabi po nila na yung intervention ninyo sa korte ay hindi pinayagan dahil hindi nga po kayo ang may-ari ng lupa. Pero maliwanag naman po na naka-annotate sa titulo ng titulo, sa encumbrance ng titulo, na kayo po pala ang nakabili ng lupa ng inyong kapatid.
Totoo po yun.
Sa makatwid, malinaw naman po na meron kayong pinangahawakan na dokumento o katibayan na talagang kayo na ang may-ari ng lupa kahit hindi pa nailipat o naisalin sa inyong pangalan yung titulo. Yung po bang ibig nyo sabihin?
Opo.
Kayo po ba lehitimong residente ng Lamaan?
Opo, 1970 po kami na tumira dyan.
Pero marami po sa inyo, marami raw pong mga ibang sukat ng lupa sa iba pang lugar ng Misamis Occidental. Tama po ba yun?
Hindi po.
Kusang loob at voluntaryo nyo bang sinira yung mga bahay ninyo?
Hindi po.
Ang sabi po kanina ng City Administrator, kayo pa po ang nakiusap para tulungan ng kontraktor na alisin na ang mga bahay ninyo para maisalba ang ilang mga bahagi nito. Totoo po ba yun?
Totoo.
Hindi po totoo o totoo?
Hindi po totoo.
Okay. Sino pa po ang gustong magsalita?
Ako po si Pinky Digia.
Mrs. Digia, please, for the record, tell us your full name.
Pinky Balat Digia.
Okay.
Ang nakabili.
Resident of Lamaan?
Opo.
Meron po ba kayong title sa lupa na inyong kinatitirikan ng bahay?
Opo. Kasi ang yuta na yun sa tiyahin ko. Binili ko. May deed of sale po ako. Pamangkin po ako ng may-ari ng lupa.
Hawak po ba dito yung dokumento ng pagkakabili ng lupa na yon?
Opo, may deed of sale po ako.
Kung ganon, ang gusto niyong sabihin, meron kayong karapatang maghabla at maghabol at magasunto sapagkat kayo na pala ang nakabili ng lupa ng kapatid nyo. Ganun po bang ibig nyo sabihin?
Lupa ng tiyahin ko po. Opo.
Nyo.
Opo.
Kusa ba ninyong pinagwawasak o dinimolis ang mga bahay ninyo? Kusang loob ba o voluntaryo?
Hindi po. No po. Nakatayo pang bahay namin po.
Hanggang ngayon ba nakatayo ang bahay ninyo?
Opo.
Ano daw ang gagawin nila sa bahay ninyo? Hindi naman nila pala wawasakin. Bakit nila kayo pinalaya sa sarili ninyong bahay? Paano raw po gagamitin ang bahay ninyo ng siyudad ng Osamis? Hindi naman pala gigibain. Ano raw po ang gagawin sa bahay ninyo? Sinabi ba sa inyo?
Gawing pundo daw po.
Ano po?
Gawing pundo. Gawing pundo. Oo po.
Ano pong gagawin nila sa bahay ninyo? Hindi naman pala nila winasak.
Tatayuan daw pundo po.
So, ang bahay ninyo ay gagamitin nila na magiging parte ng kanilang itinatayong mga kondo.
Opo.
Meron naman pong pondo kasi yung mga kondo na yan. Bakit pati yung sa inyo pala, kaya hindi winasak? Para makatipid sila at magamit na rin sapagkat maaari po siguro tirhan ang bahay ninyo. Ganun ba?
Opo.
So, paano niyo paniniwalaan yung programa na para magkaroon ng pabahay ang isang tao, palalayasin mo naman yung ibang tao sa sarili nilang bahay para merong tumirang ibang tao doon sa pamamahay na yon. Ganun po ba ang programa nila, Mrs. De Guia?
Opo.
Meron pa pong gustong magsalita. Yung pamilya po ng Mary, nandyan ba?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Meron silang sinasabi na kayo daw ay tinutulungan ng isang malaking tao. Sino ba yung tumutulong sa inyong malaking tao na binabanggit kanina doon sa pag-uusap ni DS Waminal at yung City Administrator?
Wala. Ang
Kaya daw hindi winasak yung bahay ninyo. Sinabi ko raw sa kanya na wag niyang wawasakin ang bahay nyo. Ang sinabi ko sa kanya, pare, pwede ba wag mo namang wasakin ang mga bahay ng mga nasasakupan mo nang walang due process? Wala akong sinabi na pamilya na iisang pamilya na pinagtatanggol. Ang pinagtatanggol ko sa inyo ay lahat ng mga tao na merong katwiran na magreklamo sapagkat ang pagkakawasak ng mga bahay ay hindi dinaan sa tamang proseso. Wala akong sinabihan sa inyo na isang pamilya lang ang pinakikiusap ko sa kanya. Ang sabi ko, pwede bang reviewin mo muna yung pag-expropriate mo ng lupa sapagkat sa pagkakaakala ko, dapat may proseso kang dapat na sundin. You have to review, sabi ko sa kanya, Republic Act 7279. Dahil doon sa batas na yon, maaaring hindi po pwedeng i-expropriate ang mga lupa ng mga tao na nagre-reklamo laban sa iyo. Yun ang aking sinabi. Hindi ko sinabi na i-spare yung bahay mo. Ngayon, if your house was spared in the actual demolition, nakita ko naman talaga na nakatayo pa yung bahay mo katabing-katabi ng Building 2. Ano ang gagawin nila sa bahay mo? At bakit nila kayo pinalayas?
Yung sa side po namin siguro, yun yung sinasabi nilang phase 2 po. Part po yung sa area namin po, gawin daw nila yung sa phase 2 po ng project. At saka po yung
hindi nila dinimolish yung bahay mo. What specifically is the objective in not demolishing your house, but you were evicted just the same?
Actually
Ano
po, part
gagawin nila sa bahay mo? Katulad nung isa kanina na nagsalita, hindi rin pala sinira yung bahay niya, kundi gagamitin ding parte ng condominium. Ganon din ba yung gagawin sa bahay mo?
yun po ang sabi nila po. Actually po, part of our...
Makakatipid sila ng materyales ngayon sapagkat ang mga bahay na natira ay gagamitin pala nila na kasama nung construction nila. Tama ba yun?
Pero yung fence po namin, sinira na po nila. At saka yung sa likuran po namin, yung dirty kitchen po namin, extension po yun sa bahay, sinira po nila kasi sabi nila mag-layout na po sila sa second building po. Bali may mga haligi na po nga pumasok sa property namin, sa lupa namin. Haligi ng second building po. Pumasok na po.
Sa mga tweet, magiging parte ng second building yung inyong bahay. Tama?
Po.
So ngayon, Mr. Chair, maliwanag kung bakit merong mga dinimolish at merong itinira. At kung makikita nyo yung isang slide na kaninang pinakita ko, yung bahay ng mga Neri ay medyo magandang pagkakagawa at katabing-katabi ng Building 2, maaari nga namang gawin yun na isang struktura kasama ng Building 2. At ang suspecha ko rito, Mr. Chair, malaking katipiran para sa project owner sapagkat imbes na gagawa pa siya ng ganong kalaking structure, nandun na yung structure. Ang nakakalungkot lang, kinakailangang palayasin ng mga tao, samantalang ngayon, sinasabi na nilang tahasan sa atin, harap-harapan, may mga titulo sila sa lupa at silang may-ari ng mga bahay at hindi nila voluntary na sinira ang kanilang mga bahay, taliwas dun sa pagdadrama kanina na inyo namang narinig. Salamat po sa mga residents ng Osamis. Babalikan ko po kayo kung meron po akong itatanong sa inyo.